Hey guys, so some of you may have noticed that we changed our name to Stick Side High. And the reason why is because it has come to our attention that another podcast host has the name Inside the Eight. Because of this, we are officially changing our name to Stick Side High. Thank you to all of our viewers and listeners for all of your consistent support. We cannot wait to provide you with more content this season. For our fourth episode, we had on Coach Taylor. Now, Coach Taylor is currently in her second season as head coach at Colgate. In her first year, she scored a 3-4 record. Her most notable win came against Cornell. The in-state victory earned Colgate's first win over the Big Red since 1998. Previously, she served as head coach of Lemoyne College, where she led the Dolphins to a national championship in 2018. She also served time at Cortland and Fayetteville Manlius High School. Coach Taylor has coached at all levels, from Division I to high school, and one thing remains the same throughout all of her experiences. The teams she coached all benefit greatly from her being at the helm. She knows how to win, and more importantly, she knows how to bring out the best in her athletes, on the field and off of it. I cannot wait for you to hear what we discussed this week on Stick Side High. This is your ticket inside women's lacrosse, with everything from games and stats throughout the lacrosse season to behind-the-scenes stories and interviews with coaches and players. I'm your host, Samantha Croston, graphic design by Kaylin Bushhorn and produced by Julia Skevel, every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Thank you so much, Coach Taylor, for joining us on episode 4 of the podcast. Really appreciate having you here.
Pleasure, Sam.
I appreciate it. So, I kind of wanted to start off by just talking a little bit about why you even got into coaching in the first place. Because I know that, for a while you started at the high school level. I think this is how you pronounce it. Fayetteville Manlius High School is kind of where you started out. What made you decide to make that decision? Like, was coaching always a part of your plan?
That's a question I've been asked several times, Sam. And the truth is, I love the sport. I've always loved athletics, and I learned to play lacrosse at the college level. And when I graduated and started a family, it was in the Fayetteville Manlius area. And they were talking about starting a girls lacrosse program in the high school. And we're looking for someone who might know a little bit about lacrosse. And having learned to play it at Cornell University just a few years earlier, I offered to go up and help start the program. And I actually thought it was just a step towards growing the game, and didn't really know that I would in fact stay in it and make a sport that I loved, or a hobby job that I enjoyed, kind of a career move.
And I know, and certainly, a lot of the times I think we kind of have a plan about where we might end up or not. But the reality is you have made it into a career and you've coached at a lot of different levels. And, we'll get into your coaching philosophy a little bit later. But now that you have coached not only at the high school level, but also Division I, Division II, Division III, one thing that I'm wondering kind of in the beginning here is just have you found that there is differences coaching at all of those different levels, or is the coaching philosophy in all of those aspects sort of the same?
I would say nuances, right? The game is the game. It's the higher up you go, the more talented the athletes that you're able to have the privilege of working with. So, but there are talented athletes at all levels: the high school level, Division III, Division II, and Division I. So I really have had a privilege of working with great athletes at all levels. But the opportunity to stretch the game with the speed of the game and the finesse of the game, certainly is more prevalent the higher up you go. But the game is the game. And what I also found, Sam, is that the female athlete is very, very much the same, just a little younger at the high school level with maybe some different concerns. But I understand the female athlete and the competitive mindset of these young girls and young women that want to go out and be the best they can be. And that is definitely a population I enjoy working with. And there is a lot more cross sector, cross pollination, if you will, across all those different divisions.
Well, and the reality is that you have had success across all divisions, across all levels, still one of the most winning active D1 coaches currently. And that's a big reason why I targeted you to be on this podcast in the first place, is because I want to know you've won so many games over the course of your career. How do you do it? And I can elaborate a little, specifically, I'm wondering, is it about having players with a lot of talent, or is it more about knowing how to coach them?
Well, talent always makes a coach look good. I mean, there is no coach out there that will tell you that that it's easy to win without talent. It's hard to win without talent, and there's some years you have more talent than others. So I think yes, talent is very important. I think knowing how to coach um, the game is important. How to develop the game, how to stay current in the game. But I also think perhaps some of my success could be attributed to a passion that I have to find the best in the athletes that I coach, and to stretch a player to realize, not only to envision their potential, but then to realize their potential. So that's something that I get great joy in, is that empowerment and helping young female athletes realize that while they think they're at their peak, there's still another peak they can hit. And so I think it's development and empowerment, and a little bit of that helps. And then it's building a team. I mean, you have 12 people playing together at one time. So a huge part of team success is the ability to develop a culture in which the team really puts the team ahead of individual accolades. And that culture, or that development of culture, is very important in all winning programs.
Well, and just a bit earlier, you talk about, getting the most out of people and them, especially these young women who you coach, realizing I might not have been at my peak. But I think that a lot of that back and forth, it wouldn't shock me if with some people, that's a little bit of give and take, because not everybody necessarily wants to be pushed. So how do you get them to get on board with this plan? And do you find that there is some pushback with certain athletes to that strategy?
Yes, I mean, I think without a doubt, when you have a vision of taking a program to a higher level than where it is, and the best players in that program are looking around saying, "Hey, it's pretty good right now. Like, what's the big deal? Why do we have to do this running? Why do we, don't you have a more interesting drill?" And so that therein lies the art of getting people to buy in to your vision. And I've always had a vision of what it takes to win. I know the game, and know what it takes to create a winning culture. And so I do push, and some kids I have to pull without a doubt. They don't always agree with me, for never always agree with me, but sometimes, when you're the head coach, you can just say, this is something that's going to be good for you. You got to trust me on it. And trust takes a while. So yeah, sometimes you do pull kids along, and if you pull them along enough, and you support them enough, very often the player says in the end that they were grateful for the fact that my vision was greater than their vision.
Right. And, you talk a little about the, ugh, why do we have to do this? Why can't we be doing something else? And the first thing that comes to mind for me, obviously being a former student athlete, having played for you for a year, would be maybe that conditioning component of,
Of course.
that's something that you value greatly. I think maybe more than other coaches.
Yeah.
And I guess part of me is wondering, is there a connection here between is the conditioning just about the physical aspect of it, or is there another reason why that's such a pertinent part of the Kathy Taylor plan?
Yes. Well, that's a very good question, very insightful. And it's always more than what it looks like, right? To some, it just looks like, oh my gosh, she has nothing else to do. She's just going to make us run, 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 run. Why doesn't she go coach a track team? But the reality is that winning teams and successful programs are built on a structure of you deserve to win, and you are tough, and you deserve to win. And so sometimes, it's kind of like steel. It gets tougher when it's put in the fire. Human beings come together when they're in difficult situations. Either they come together or they come apart. And so we create hard situations that allow programs to support one another and come together and find a next level. So it's the mental toughness, it's the physical toughness, it's the fact that you deserve to win. I mean, confidence comes from being well prepared. And when you think you've worked harder than many of the programs you're going to play against, it gives you a certain sense in that locker room that we deserve to win. Nobody's working this hard. And also in that hard work, we find the ability to stretch some people's potential, whether it's getting them in better shape, it's allowing them to be a little quicker, a little faster. It's allowing them to see another side of their athleticism. So we really like to give those opportunities for people to feel confident in an area that they're going to have to play in.
And I have to say, I do agree that there is a certain level of satisfaction, at least from the player standpoint, of feeling like you might have hit your peak and then having somebody who does challenge you and say, no, it's not, and I'm going to prove you wrong. But I also hear you talk a lot about this hard work aspect and stretching people. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about some of the other values that are really important to you. Definitely hard work seems like one of them, but what are other things that you try and instill into your players, maybe on an everyday basis?
Yeah, mental toughness is a huge value. Well, what do I want to say? It's a huge component of programs that I would like to lead, but it's also a great skill set to have in life. So I would say most of what we try to instill in our program is going to make the young woman who leaves the program stronger and better for having been in the program. Whether you are a starter, an All-American, or you are one of the role players that comes off the bench. Hopefully the messaging is consistent and the same. Everybody has to work hard if they want to get somewhere. The team is more important than the individual in an environment where we have to have team success. And also trust. I think this world we lack trust, and on a team sport, if one another, if you're more worried about me than you are about trusting each other and finding that space where we can be greater than the individual parts, then you won't ever realize your potential. But so we really want people that are going to work hard, they're going to trust, they're going to be a great teammate, that they're going to be able to handle constructive/critical feedback, because the world is not going to think every day you are wonderful unless you work hard and prove yourself. So I feel like this is the Kathy Taylor School of Tough Knocks, and we just do it in the lacrosse field. And I'm honestly just out there trying to make strong women out of young women.
That's all you're trying to do. I do feel like the reality of the situation is, it seems to me that a lot of the lessons that you're trying to preach are just frankly transferable to real life, and washed up people like me notice that eventually upon graduation, that some of those lessons are transferable in the real world. But, then again, I think there are also, the same way you say there are a lot of things that you do preach. I'm sure that every coach has some things that they don't tolerate. So tell us one thing that is just not tolerated on the Kathy Taylor field.
Selfish play. Self-absorbed athletes are hard to coach in a team sport. Lack of effort, really, really, really tough. I want everybody to work hard. And if your heart is not as quite as talented as someone else, that's okay. But if you're on this team, you are all in. Loyalty, I think that you have to work at being a very loyal teammate. So I being casual, it's kind of, it's so interesting. I could go back 25 or 30 years and ask some of the young women that are now, have grown children of their own. What did she say a lot? And I'd be like, don't be so casual, when you're out there. When you have a limited 2 hours, you don't want to be casual. But, in a game, you don't want to be casual. You have to be intense. So I really have a great deal of respect for competitive people, even when they make mistakes. Don't be casual.
Well, and it's funny that you say, what would these ladies who I coached a long time ago say about me? Because I do feel like there's this book somewhere of Kathy Taylor phrases that just consistently come up. And it's something that I have experienced myself, but I wanted to ask about. I know that people always say, oh, there's just this list and there are these things she always says. What's one message that you're always saying? One of those one-liner Kathy Taylor phrases that you preach a lot?
I would say definitely don't be casual. Don't be complacent. Don't be casual. I always, if you want to go get it, it's hard to be great. The reality is there'd be more people and more teams that were great if it was easy, but it's hard to be great. So if you want to be great, it's hard work. And nobody ever got a free pass to the promised land. You got to work hard. So a lot of it is that messaging as to, if you want something big out of something, you have to be willing to commit to it. And
Right.
it's not just the hard work. It could be, watching game film and preparing a scout. It could be the little extra 10 or 15 minutes that you go out to shoot or do 1v1s or make saves if you're a goalie, throw clears if it's an element of your game. You can't just say, well, I'm not very good at that. Well, okay. It may be, in fact, you aren't very good, but what are you doing to change that? So, a lot about, what is your plan? I always say, hope is not a strategy.
That's
Okay.
the one. There it is. That's the one.
But
That's the
it's a
one I was
good one, isn't
missing.
it?
Oh, that is my favorite one. I still say that now.
Like, even to yourself, right? There's
Oh
got to be
yeah.
these moments like, why
Yeah.
am I just hoping this is going to get different? I got to do something.
That was probably the most game-changing one-liner I heard, was hope is not a strategy, because it is so true. At the end of the day, like you said, hoping and wishing, where does that really get you, as opposed to going out there and getting after it? I totally see the messaging behind that. But I think, again, we talked about this a little bit earlier. It might be hard for a lot of people to see all those messages at first. And that's where I wonder, are those the times where you start to lean on the assistant coaches that you work with? Like, what would be their role in all of this, or the captains? Like, do you include all those people and sort of help them and rely on them to, maybe express your messages in a different way so it gets across to people better?
Absolutely. You know what? One of the first things, the most important thing that a coach has to do, truthfully, is to surround themselves by good people that help drive the messaging, right? That drive the vision and the mission. And so staff, ultimately, that decisions are vital. Who you share your office with, who you share the locker room with, who you share the field with, is it can't be a lonely journey. If it's a lonely journey, you're not doing it very well. So you really do need to have your assistants be a part of that, and you as a head coach have to be open to their value. I'm a big collaborator in as a head coach. I know I've been in the game a long time. I could be a dinosaur, if you will, but I don't want to be a dinosaur. So I always have young assistants that are very current and competitive themselves. It would be hard for me to have someone on my staff that wasn't competitive, because we all want to, it has to be, when we walk in that locker room, like we're in it together, the captains, the staff, the team. It could be the athletic trainer, strength and conditioning manager, whatever. We're all moving sports information in the same direction to try and have a successful program, a successful year, season, game, whatever that is. So absolutely, the staff is critical, but the captains, the development of the leadership and the team is one of the primary goals when you take over a new program, and something that has to be on the top of your list every year. Who are my leaders going to be, and what type of support do I need to give them? What type of messaging? How can we help them be better leaders so that they can help the team? But then also just the voices, where if you're not being a new program every day, which I would say that as a coach, like one of my themes is, we're not a new team every day. We're just getting to be hopefully a better team, right? So every day is not a new day. And so some of the language that we use, some of the drills that we use are ones that the team can follow and become a voice in too. So when you step back and you hear one of your players that you've coached for a year or 2 years say something to the rest of the team before you have an opportunity to say it, and you're thinking, wow, I was just going to say that. You know what? You're going home that night as a head coach saying, okay, we're on our way. We're getting there. Everybody, there's a buy-in, because when people will use your words, they're buying in, they're believing.
Well, and when you say, that buy-in, that kind of, leads into the next thing I was going to talk about, because I know, again, you've made a lot of transitions throughout your time as a coach, the most recent of those being from Lemoyne to Colgate. And a part of me wonders, that first year when you come into Colgate, that the majority of the team has been there with one, maybe, two or three new coaches before you. And you're coming into a team that has already been under some other kind of leadership. How do you get that buy-in, especially from some of those upperclassmen who have already sort of maybe developed their own idea of how they want to play and their game and even off the field, maybe some of the values that they have? How do you switch them, in the beginning of their senior or junior year?
Well, that is a challenge for all coaches when you go into a new program and you have pre-existing expectations. The players do of what they think, where they think they fit in, what type of style they want to play, and all of a sudden, new group comes in and you want to make some changes. I think the biggest thing is you have to be open to what's really important to the team and respect that, but be very honest that you're not coming in to do what has been done before, and with no disrespect to what has been done before, but you've been hired to raise the bar, and in raising the bar we're going to have some change. So what's really important, really kind of trying to respect really important issues, have an open door policy where people can come in and talk to you, but have a very clear vision of what you want to do, and ask for the support. I think I asked for it instead of demanded it, and I think that's important. Nobody has to buy into what you say, but you really, if you really believe you can help them, you are compelling, and you ask for that support, and also give them a voice that if it's not great or you need to make changes or you need to be concerned about something, let me know. So they cannot be afraid to tell you if things are not good. I'm not also wanting to have meetings every other day and talk about how everybody's feelings are, because I'm a new coach, and it's not going to always feel good. So we're going to ask for the support of the captains, trust the leadership. And, sometimes you get a little lucky, like we did last year. I felt very grateful for the senior class and the captains that we had. And I've been blessed. Every place I've gone, the senior class and the leaders have been willing to take a step into that arena with me and see how that goes. And it's made for some very positive experiences. I mean, not every player I've coached thinks that I'm wonderful, but enough players that I've coached have had respect for my ability to take the team to a higher level.
Right. And, I definitely think that's true, as long as you can get enough people on board, oftentimes the rest of the group will follow, which I do think is what you did. But again, even last year, that's the first year you are trying to make sure that you have everybody on board, and you get to the spring season. And, this is something I only like to touch on briefly, but I do think it's important. It's your first season and you didn't ever even get to finish it because of obviously unexpected challenges. And I'm wondering, as a coach, like you said before, your words, not mine, that you could be considered a dinosaur, but that is not a situation that you or anybody else has ever experienced before. So what's the message then when all of a sudden the reality of the situation is that the result of, that season is out of everyone's control, including you?
Right. I mean, I think, the only thing that I can tell you is that having been around for a long time and having seen disappointing moments, whether it's been a season that hasn't been what we had hoped for, or injuries, student athletes that have had injuries, teams that have fallen short, of their potential because of moments that were out of their control. It gives you this sense that life is not always fair, and then
Right.
therein you have another opportunity to teach these young women how to handle something that doesn't feel fair, and you have some space to try to figure that out with them. And it's less than perfect, and you have a class that graduated never having an official senior day, a graduation, never having been able to play in the Patriot League that we thought we were going to go after and try and disrupt. So there's a lot of disappointment, and you're reminded once again that life is not fair. And I don't know that I handled it any better than any other coach, except for the fact that I didn't shirk the responsibility of handling it.
Right. And you know what? I think the same way that obviously, of course, I was one of those seniors in that class, but the same way that I sort of moved on, you moved on too. And we both have bigger and better things now that we're focused on. For you, it's that upcoming, 2021 season. And your home opener, I know, is actually this week on Friday. So congratulations. We finally made it to the next year. I know you and your girls must be so excited to finally be getting back on the field. And I always kind of say this, I wouldn't be, doing my job on this podcast if I didn't talk about, at least for a little while, what the most current thing is. And for you, I think it's this upcoming 2021 season and what you're planning to do. So I want to talk about that a little bit, if that's all right. I know that, to start, you were ranked sixth preseason in the conference. And I'm wondering what your assessment is of that. Is that an accurate assessment? Were you underrated a little, overrated? How'd you feel? You're sixth.
You know, I guess it was probably, I think we were six last year too. I think it is the same place where they put us going into our first season as a coaching staff. I don't know that a lot of people changed or moved in that spot. So I believe it's just a carryover from last year. And we never got a chance to play a single Patriot League team, as I said earlier. And so they really don't know who we are. And we had some highs last year, as you know, and then we had some, some moments where we didn't show up the way I think our potential was, and I believe fully that we could have figured it out better with a little bit more time, but we didn't get that. So now we have to figure out like how to go back to those same goals without that senior class. And I'm very proud of the job that the kids have done, or that our team have done. They're not kids, the young women have done so far in working hard. But so yeah, I guess I'm beating around the bush. I six is okay. It's not where I want to be at the end. I'll be happy to take the six as a preseason ranking.
Right. And while you did say, you don't have that senior class from last year and the group of leaders that was with that, I do know that one person in particular, Noelle Patterson, did come back for that fifth year. That's the only person in the senior class who decided to make that decision. How much are you relying on her to lead the way?
Well, it's been a pleasure to have Noah back, and I don't think it's been an easy year for her. I mean, she is going into a graduate program that she didn't really see herself going into, and then found herself in, and it's not a bad fit for her plans after she finishes up here at Colgate, but certainly different than everyone else on the team, unlike so many of the Division I programs that brought people back, and they would have a class full of at least three or four other players in the same situation, and Noelle is alone in that situation. Just today, Sam, we had a practice, and we did not have Noelle there because of graduate class during the time of practice. So there are some challenges for her, but I have been very impressed with the job that Noelle has done in working with the other three captains that are all seniors, and certainly on the field. I'm very excited. She has been named preseason All Patriot League, and when I get a chance to watch her play this last week or so, I think it's very, very worthy. She's very worthy of that.
Without a doubt. I was happy to see her get that award. I actually think that maybe even a couple other Colgate people could have been put on there too. But I do think that Noelle, of course, 100% was deserving of that award. And I also can't wait to watch her play. But so then tell me, last year, I'm sure that you guys kind of had an end goal and we never got to see that through. So be it. But this year, the hope is you will. So what is that end goal at the end of 2021? Where are you hoping to land?
Well, I can't, I always hope to land at the top. So, but the hope is not a strategy. What is my plan? Our plan is that we're going to work hard. We have a very young freshman goalie. We had a junior goalie who was going to come in and replace you this year, who had a wonderful fall in Olivia Lynch. And she tore her ACL over the holiday break. And so we are with a freshman goalie who came in a pandemic, practiced in a mask, right? Very, quarantine both semesters, just not your typical freshman, let's go situation. And I think she, in the fall felt like she would be sitting behind Liv, which she would have been. And now she's got a big role. We have a walk-on goalie who joined us in January after we lost Liv, so that we could have two goalies at practice. And Kat's doing a wonderful job. Kat Ludis, and she is a junior here who hadn't played since high school, but she has really helped us out. So it's going to be a different look this year, and it's going to be challenging, but we are hoping that, we are planning to get better every day in hopes that we will make the tournament. We want to make the tournament. And I've always believed that any team that can make the tournament has the ability or the potential to win a tournament, right? But you got to make a tournament before you can even think about that. So our focus is to try to get better and take care of our North region.
Well, I agree. And I know that, for those of you listening that don't know, the schedule is going to be a little bit different this year, less time to prepare. I believe you guys have 2 games that are non-conference before you jump right into it. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
So a little bit less time to prepare, and they're not able to face every team. They're split into 2 different pods, a North Division and a South Division is what they're calling it in the Patriot League, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. But I just want to say, either way, I wish you luck, and I have no doubt that Colgate is going to be able to accomplish amazing things this season. Last thing I have for you, we have a new segment just started last week for the first time. It's called 90-second shot clock. So I'm just going to put 90 seconds on my clock and ask you a bunch of random questions, some having to do with lacrosse, some not, just so that anybody listening can get to know a little bit more about you. And if there's any that for any reason you don't want to answer, just say pass and we'll move on to the next one. That sound good?
Sounds like fun.
All right. I'll tell you when. 90 seconds on the clock. You ready?
Yes.
What stat do you love the most out of these 3? Ground ball, cause turnover, or draw control?
Ground ball.
How fast in seconds do you like to have the ball from your goalie's stick to the offensive 30?
In a perfect world, 15.
M&M's, plain or peanut?
Plain.
Who do you think's going to win the national championship this year?
UNC.
If you could meet one famous person, dead or alive, who would it be?
Jesus.
Is there one rule you would like added to women's lacrosse?
Shorter shot clock. Once it had already hit the goalie, the second shot clock should be shorter by about 25 seconds.
I like that. Biggest pet peeve?
Low effort.
Name 2 people in the lacrosse world who made you a better coach.
Great question. I would definitely say Gary Gate, and there's a lot of them out there. Carol Kentelli is going into the Hall of Fame right now next year, and she's at Gettysburg.
Okay.
Carol.
Favorite flavor ice cream?
Chocolate.
Me too. Well, thank you so much for playing. And again, I really do mean it. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it, and I wish you guys the best of luck this season.
Thank you for having me, Sam.
Sure.